Well, it's been a few weeks since we poured the concrete. You can see they're looking rather cured behind me here for the barn. And today is kind of a big day, maybe, we'll see. But I'm going to try to get the frame up, or at least start on it. I'm alone again, so I'm not sure how successful I'm going to be. I have a feeling it's going to be difficult to do that as a one-man job, but we'll see. Yesterday I spent the day, where are they here? Trying to, there they are, fix the 3 posts that for some reason were shorter than the rest of them. I think the barn this thing came from had a stone foundation wall that ran down the middle, and so all the middle posts are, I think they came out to be like 8 or 9 inches shorter than the rest of them. So instead of pouring a handful of columns that were higher and then sticking out, I figured what I would do is I would fix the post. So you can see, made a pretty simple mortise and tenon. It was kind of a pain because honestly these posts are not in the best of shape. If I had the time, I actually would have definitely replaced one of them, possibly all 3. You can see there's not even a square edge on some of these. This one, for some reason, has a saw kerf all the way, or almost all the way through it. And then there's some other rather sketchy parts on the top of the post. So what I'm probably going to end up doing, I don't think it's going to be a structural problem, but I think once it's finished, a couple of the posts that have a little bit worse bearing spots up on the top, I'll probably cut them out and replace it with a sistered in piece of wood. But did that yesterday, going in between rainstorms, so it was rather fun and took forever, but got them in. They're all the same length now, so they should be ready to go up. So what the plan will be is to hope that everything is actually square-ish and conforms to the dimensions that I was given when I bought this thing years ago, and hope it's 20 by 14, and I'll lay it out with some string lines and put some anchors in and then go for it. Hopefully it is sort of the right dimensions, because once I put the anchors in, I'm kind of stuck. But before I can do that, you'll notice I've got a bunch of the posts and other things of wood surrounding my concrete pads. And that is because I should have done something before I poured the concrete that I completely forgot about, and honestly have been putting off, hoping I didn't have to do it, because this kind of breaks my heart. But if you see that maple tree right there, this is one of the many trees that lost its top in our big ice storm like 4 years ago. And it's the one closest to the camera here. And if you look up there, there's a single branch that goes out, and it has leaves on it and it's doing okay. But up above it, you can see all the bark is falling. Actually, and even below that branch, you can see the bark is falling off the tree. Problem is, it may survive. The odds go way down when it's lost an entire top like that. It's been a couple of years, well, 3 years now, and it's still going, but I think it's slowly dying. And if I don't take it out now, it's probably going to be catastrophic down the road when it lands square on the barn. So unfortunately, I got to cut that thing down, and it's right next to a couple other trees. next to the cliff that I have made even worse. And where it's going to fall is right in the area where I poured all my concrete. So the last thing I want to do is have that tree come down and land right on my concrete and break it. Big bird went by. So I've put all these wooden posts around the concrete, hoping that the tree, if it comes down and does end up going that direction, will hit the wood and kind of soften the blow and not crack all of my concrete. So we'll see how it goes. I'm going to put the camera on the tripod and climb up the hill, and we'll see what happens with taking down this maple tree that feels a little bit sacrilegious, especially considering that's the first tree I saw that actually inspired me to do maple syrup, and now I got to cut it down. But that's life. So we'll see how it goes. Hopefully I won't destroy my concrete, and I'll be able to start putting the barn up today. So here it goes. Well, that went about as good as I could have hoped for. I didn't break anything. It landed exactly where I wanted it to. Hit the back beam, but I think it was on the bounce, so I think it's okay. So now I get to cut it up. I guess there'll be some firewood, but yeah, that whole top was looking pretty ratty. I'm pretty sure it wouldn't have survived. The other tree that's up there is better, but it's got some issues too. So hopefully I don't regret not taking that one down. And the amount of blackberries and other brambles up there is remarkable. Obviously you probably saw me cut my way through so I could get to the road. So successful, a little nerve-wracking, but luckily it landed where and how I wanted it to. So cut it up and get to the barn. Right, the tree is all gone. I think I mentioned that it was looking kind of rough. In hindsight, now that I've had a chance to look at it after cutting it up, it's really good. I took it down. The entire top half was rotten already and had gotten really punky. So I imagine that the one branch that was alive didn't have much longer to go, and this thing would have ended up down on the barn. So I've now got everything laid out. Most of the strings are gone, but you can see I ran a whole bunch of string lines using my square, using a 3-4-5 triangle method. I think I've got it laid out pretty good. I was only off by about 1/8 of an inch in this corner here, and this is the one spot that is a little bit shady because there's not a huge amount of bearing surface on the concrete post. So that's where my hole is gonna go. I would much rather it be over there, but one post out of 11, I think I'm gonna risk it and not worry about it too much, especially considering the condition of the barn. But I've now gone around and as you saw in that one, laid out all of my brackets, which are right here, with the position for the bolt to go in. And I will be using the hammer drill on that and drilling out the holes, putting the brackets in with the anchor bolts and snugging them down. Unfortunately, I just realized I didn't bring my 1/2-inch ratchet, so I might have to get cute with how I try to snug them down. I don't know how that's going to work, but that will be the job here. And then I'll start dragging beams over and putting them together and seeing if I have any chance at all of getting these things up by myself. So I think I'll switch it over to time lapse because I don't think anybody's going to want to watch me drill 11 holes in concrete and put brackets in, but then I'll probably switch it back to video at some point after that. So. I thought I would do a close-up video on putting one of these things in just in case somebody's interested. I probably should preference all this stuff with, this isn't a how-to video. This is just how I do it. I don't necessarily know what I'm doing, so take that with a grain of salt. I think I generally do things pretty well, but there's your warning. This is your bracket that holds the post. In this case, it's for a 6x6. Now that I think about it, I probably should have gone around and measured, because I have no idea what these old barn timbers actually have ended up being. My guess is I might have to shave some off, but that's a moot point. They actually make two different kinds of brackets. Some for dimensional posts, which are what you would buy at the hardware store. So if you get a 6x6, it's generally 5.5 by 5.5, something like that, 5.25. They are not 6x6, and that's for two reasons. One is they've cut down lumber sizes over the years to reduce the amount of wood that they use and increase the number of items that they are able to create out of a single log. More profit. The other thing is they're usually cut when they're wet, green. And so if you cut something that is 6x6, after it dries, it's going to shrink and it will end up smaller than that. So is it going to go down to 5.25? Probably not. So the more modern mills actually go a little bit further than what you would get for shrinkage, but that's kind of what you get. And you can either buy one that is really 6x6, so that's if you're using lumber from a sawmill like I can do here, or you can get the ones for dimensional lumber, which is what you would get at a store. These are actually for dimensional lumber from Lowe's. They are the Z Max version, which means that they are more for outdoor exposure, galvanized. The company is Simpson. Got bags blowing around here. And they actually make a couple different versions of these. These are actually the, I guess, the lower performance, cheaper versions. They actually make some like I've got on the cabin over there, since it's hanging off the hill and people would presumably be in it. I use the more sturdy ones, and they actually, instead of having these folded up little ears on them that you nail through that are only 1.5 inches tall, they're actually about 6 inches, and they're much thicker. So a much more sturdy bracket, but they're also, I think, about 50 or 60 bucks a piece, whereas these are about $22, $23 a piece right now. Who knows what they'll be in 2 months or a year. It'll probably be $50, but you can see there's a hole in the middle. That's where your anchor bolt goes. And the other thing is there's a three-dimensionality here. You can see that the part where the bolt goes flush against the concrete is about 3/4 of an inch, 1/2 inch, something like that, lower than these top pieces. That's the bottom. So this will sit flush on the concrete. And the reason for that is that it keeps your board up off the concrete, and that will prevent, or at least dramatically minimize, the rotting aspects of your wood. Because if you put wood directly against concrete, the concrete will basically absorb water, and it will rot your wood out from the bottom up. So you never want to have direct contact with concrete and wood, even if it's pressure treated. So this design actually takes that into account and makes it so it has a barrier. The more expensive ones actually have a plate that goes down. So the entire bottom is actually, I think it's 3/16 or inch thick solid plate. You bolt that down, and then you take a little square bracket that goes down and covers your bolt. You position it over your hole. In this case, I have to use 5/8 inch anchors, which means I drill a 5/8 inch hole in the concrete. You need to make it bigger than the length of your bolt, because the worst thing that you can have happen is you don't drill it deep enough and you bottom out with the bottom of the anchor, and then you have too much bolt sticking up. The way this works is, you can see this is a wedge right here, and here's a sleeve. So when you put this thing in the concrete and you start wrenching on this nut, what it'll do is it'll push this together, and it actually forces these things out, and it pushes the wedge into this little expandable washer down here, and it gets tight against the hole. So you want to have that down in the hole really well. The other thing is you need to have this nut, when everything is said and done, lower than the height of this, otherwise your beam is going to hit it on the bottom and be sticking up on something in the high center. So what you typically want to do is you need to put the nut on the anchor about 3/4 of the threads in. If you just hit this anchor without the nut on it, you're going to mangle the threads and you'll never get the nut on it. So this is probably the most important part after drilling the hole. You have to put the nut on there, leave a little bit of threads of the nut showing through on the top, and then you can pound this thing in with the hammer. The other thing that's important is you need to clean the hole out. For this particular application, it's not, obviously life critical or anything, but if you leave a bunch of dust in there, then this thing won't necessarily pinch and grab. It'll kind of lube it and allow it to slip out. It's particularly important if you have things that are going to be housing people, or in the case of what I'm more interested in this case would be things like rock climbing. So you put these types of anchors in for rock climbing anchors. You don't want them coming out, or otherwise somebody's going to die. So very, very critical that you blow the hole out. And if you saw in the time lapse, I was using my leaf blower to do that on each hole. So again, put the nut on, leave it a little bit high off the threads, line up your hole, stick it in there. And you want to make sure it's in pretty good, because it will pull up a little bit when you are tightening it. And that's why my suggestion is you keep about 3/4. You thread it about 3/4 of the way, keep about 1/4 of the threads of the nut still unthreaded. And that way, when you tighten it and it pulls up, you're not going to be above the base of your bracket. Now, luckily, I can get my combination wrench just barely on these nuts since I don't have my ratchet. It's kind of a pain, but at least it's working. I don't have to go into town. And you snug it up, and that's it. So 11 brackets on. Didn't have any problems with any of them, even the one in the corner that isn't on a whole lot of concrete. I didn't tighten it like crazy because I don't want to blow out the post, but I think we're going to be in good shape. Now the question is, can I get this barn to actually go together and everything to fit and able to lift it alone? So we'll see how that goes.